If you're ready to explore the Hebrew roots of your Christian faith, then grab your Bible and let's get started. Shalom, and welcome back to Tuesday night Torah Studies. I am so thankful to be in your presence, in your home on today. I know that this day is a day that many people are participating in trick or treat, trunk or treat, Holy Spirit, or Holy Ghost night. I do want to say this as kingdom builders, we do not engage in any activities that mimic or copy what the pagan faith had designed. They designed it for them, and many people are trying to make it fit the kingdom. Instead, we should be doing the opposite. This day should be not acknowledged at all. I know I once was one of those, and I can understand how difficult it can be to change our mindset to kingdom thinking. I know that it is really difficult to get away from all the paganism that we have. I mean, after all, the days of the week and many names of the months are pagan. So I understand that. But there's ways that we can be in the world, but not be of the world. Remember, it is still a pagan holiday. It's a faith, it's a religion for them. And we have it mixed. And that's not the only holiday that many people acknowledge that belongs to the pagan faith. Welcome to Reconcile the Kingdom, where we're working towards growing in the harmony of the whole word of truth. My name is Patrice Robinson, and as usual, I appreciate every last one of you who have joined me on today. If this is your first time visiting me, I welcome you. Fifth time, 10th, 50th, even the 400th time, I welcome you. I appreciate you. Allow me to be in your presence each and every time that you do join in with me. But I want to take this time to invite you to join me. Join me and join this family, this community who does not mind searching of scripture, that does not mind challenging the religious system's teachings that we have been under for hundreds of years. A family that does not mind becoming and continue to be a student of the Bible. That's a lifetime. That's not just 3 months out of a year or, once a month. It's a lifetime study. Most of all, that you're ready to explore the Hebrews of your Christian faith. And it's really easy to join this family. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button below. And don't forget the bell, because the bell lets you know when I'm live, when there's any updates or any announcement that comes from this ministry. And I appreciate that, all of those who have hit the subscribe button. So don't forget to do that before you leave this live broadcast. So other ways that you can support this ministry, making comments below. If you are joining me live, I will appreciate an emoji letting me know that you joined me live. You don't have to type out a whole sentence to send me an emoji. If you are joining me doing a replay, you can send an emoji. Let me know that you joined me doing the replay. Share the link when you're live and when you're on the play. Share it with your friends and your family. I greatly appreciate that, because if you're learning something, they can learn something too. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know you like the Bible content that I'm putting out here for you and for others or anyone else, and learning myself along this journey. But that thumbs up is important, because to let YouTube know they need to send this ministry out to more people. Follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, Spotify, and YouTube podcast for those who have YouTube membership. Shop in the online digital shop. I am so thankful for the online digital shop. On Saturday, if you missed the Sabbath day teaching, we did the book of Judges, chapter 19. I believe that's what we completed. I don't think we completed it. I think we began. Judges chapter 19. But during that live premiere, I actually did my first giveaway, and that was the book of Ruth. Was totally free for the entire day, so you didn't have to shop. You can just download it, and this is the very reason why I did that. Now, you still have time to go into the online digital shop and get the book of Ruth, because we'll be starting that soon, and the book of Exodus, because we're almost at the end of Genesis. So you have opportunity to get ready for the book of Exodus. And don't forget to donate in the love jar. Donating in the love jar is you partnership with me on growing the ministry. That is also important. There's so much work at the back end of ministry that people don't think about. So all the ways that we just spoke about supporting the ministry, you can find that in the description box. You can take a look at that after live premiere, and of course during the replay. I think it's important to remind you that at the end of the teaching, you have opportunity to ask questions about the teaching that's presented to you today, even with the overview. You can ask questions. I encourage asking questions. I encourage making comments. I encourage you sharing the links, even during the teaching. All of these things are important as a community. I don't get too many questions, and I don't want to get the big head because I know I don't know everything, and I would like to hear from you. So we always begin our teaching with going over the previous week teaching. So last week we were in Genesis chapter 48, and I'm going to pull up my sheet. Genesis chapter 48. Genesis chapter 48. We can just narrow it down to Israel's deathbed. Genesis chapter 48 and 49 actually concludes into that. But it's also Israel blessing the firstborn in Genesis chapter 48. It is the birthright blessing that is going on in this chapter. So Israel is become sick, and so they let Joseph know. So Joseph meets with Israel, and he brings his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Remember, Manasseh is the firstborn, and Ephraim is the secondborn. So Israel begins to speak to Joseph about his journey, especially being blessed by the visitation of the ladder that came down, the angels ascending and descending, and Yehovah is at the top, pronouncing the blessing over him to be fruitful and multiply, that he will bless him for the land. The same blessing that he spoke to Abraham, the same blessing spoken to Isaac, and it is now spoken to Israel. So during this conversation, Israel, first of all, is very excited that he had the opportunity to spend time with Joseph, because remember, he thought Joseph was deceased. And not only did he see Joseph, he actually had an opportunity to engage with his grandchildren by Joseph. So Israel actually adopts the two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. So he adopts them and bring them up to sonship as equal to his 12 sons. So these two sons, Manasseh the firstborn and Ephraim the secondborn. You're like, why she keep saying the first and secondborn? Because what we find in Genesis chapter 48, that Israel switches that, changes Ephraim to the firstborn and Manasseh to the secondborn. So Ephraim, because Ephraim's promise is that he will be a multitude of nations. He will be more than just Ephraim, and that's nations with S. Remember, Israel is one nation. So Ephraim will have multiple nations coming from him, and then Manasseh will be multiplied, but he will not have those multiple nations. So my insight from Genesis chapter 48, and I think this goes all the way to Abraham, to be honest, because I notice each time the birthright is passed on is at the deathbed or close to the deathbed of the father. This happened with Abraham, and this happened with um, Isaac, and now this is happening with Israel. So, one thing to remember is that Abraham had 8 sons, and before he passed on, out of those 8 sons, Isaac is the one that got the firstborn blessing, the birthright, not Ishmael or none of the other 6 sons that came from Keturah. So, as we get into understanding for Genesis chapter 49, we're going to see what's going on with the sons themselves. So, in my worksheet, I have all the cross reference that we have talked about in Genesis chapter 48. No questions and no word study for Genesis chapter 48. I will continue to have this up just for a while to give you opportunity to give your key points, to give your thoughts, to give any insight, any application or word study you did on your own, cross-reference or any questions that you may have. We can address this tonight. And anytime there's a question, I will address those at the end of the teaching, the comments and things we might just present those as they come along. So hopefully you have your Bible before you, all the writing utensils you need, the workbook for Genesis or the worksheet from Genesis. And if you don't have those, you most definitely have a pen and paper because you do need to take notes. We will not finish all of Genesis chapter 49 on tonight. Actually, to be honest, Genesis chapter 49, we can probably go a total of um, 4 maybe 4 sessions out of it because there's so much about the tribes of Israel. So we're going to jump right into 49, chapter 49, verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Israel. Hearken unto Israel your father. I do have a tendency of not saying Jacob most time because his name has been changed to Israel, and I want to acknowledge that. Israel has already blessed Joseph's sons. Remember, Ephraim, Manasseh, those names, their birthright changed their names to Ephraim, Manasseh. And just to plug this in, as you continue with the word of Yehovah, you will notice that, especially in the book of Judges, you will notice a house of Ephraim, house of Joseph, and those type of language, but it's presenting for Joseph's. Well, actually, it's presenting as the house of Israel, house of Joseph, house of Ephraim, and then you have the house of Judah. Those are 2 different kingdoms that were divided, but we will get into that more in the future. But it's just fascinating to me how many people do not understand that there were 14 different tribes. They focus on the 12 sons when there was actually 14 different tribes. And I actually did a teaching on that, so I will link that in the description box at maybe tonight. But there is 14 tribes. So Ephraim and Manasseh received the firstborn blessings to be great and fruitful. Now he's calling the rest of the sons in. After he spoke to his adopted sons from Joseph, he's now bringing the other ones in and about to tell them about their future, actually the descendants' future, based off of the behaviors and the things they have done. So basically, he's prophesying to his sons about their descendants and where they're going to be, what that's going to become, what that's going to look like. Verse number 3. We're talking about Reuben now. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, the excellency of power, unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defidest thou it. He went up to my couch. So Reuben is the firstborn son of Leah, firstborn son of Israel and Leah, Jacob at that time, but he is the firstborn by Leah. Now, technically, He will be the firstborn who will be receiving the firstborn blessing, the firstborn birthright. Many of you who've been on this journey with me from all through Genesis, we know that Reuben lost it. We spoke about this last week. He lost the firstborn birthright because he defiled Israel's bed by sleeping with Bilhah, Israel's concubine. You find this in Genesis 35 and 22. And it came about while Israel was living in the land that Reuben went and slept with his father's concubine, Bilhah, and Israel heard about it. So Reuben's firstborn birthright went from Joseph to his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. We read about this again, and we talked about this in chapter 48. Going back to 1 Chronicles 5, 1 and 2. Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. So this was confirmation. For he was the firstborn, but so much as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel. The genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. This is it was not according to the birthright. Verse number 2. For Judah prevailed above his brethren, and he came the chief ruler, but the birthright was Joseph. And we will talk more about that verse number 2 a little bit deeper as we continue on. Verse 5. So now we're about to talk about Simeon and Levi. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitation. O my soul, come not bow into thy secret until their assembly my honor. Be not thou united, for in thou anger they slay a man. In their self will they dig down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Simeon and Levi, both sons of Leah, the first wife. Simeon and Levi joined together. They did not only slay a man, but they slay all the circumcised males in Shechem out of their anger. So if you go back to Genesis chapter 34, we remember when Israel and his family went to Shechem, and Dinah, the only daughter, went to amongst the women of Shechem, and the prince of Shechem ended up raping Dinah. But he wanted to make it right. He wanted to marry her. And so Simeon and Levi comes up with this deceitful plan. And they use the covenant of Yehovah to do this. So they basically told the men that they won't accept the marriage unless they be circumcised and they become one as brethren. And so they agreed to this. And so while the men was in the process of healing, they end up Simeon and Levi going and killing all these men, taking the children and the women with them and other things um, with them. So this was a very wicked thing that they did out of anger, even after the prince of Shechem wanted to make things right. So because of this, Levi does not inherit any allotment among the children of Israel, amongst the tribe. What they do receive is cities and towns. Now, you will need to go into Numbers chapter 35, verses 1 through 7, just to get a quick look at this. Let me read this here. I'm going to start with verse 2. Command the children of Israel that they would give unto Levites of the inheritance of their possession cities dwell in. And you shall also give unto Levi suburbs of the cities around about them. So they was able to get cities, the suburb area. They was able to get the land in the cities. So good land for the cattle and the goods and all the beasts that they will be offering up as sacrifices. So they needed the good land. So they got the suburb areas. Now, They also got the cities of refuge and 42 cities. So, all in total, I'm going to go down to verse 7 of Numbers 35. So, all the cities which you shall give to the Levites shall be 48 cities, and they should the give with their suburbs. So they was able to get 48 cities out of the areas of the allotments of the land, not a chunk of land like many of the other tribes. So Joseph did not get an allotment either. So now Simeon, his allotment was in the midst of Judah. Joshua 19 and 1. And the second lot came forth to Simeon, even from the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families, and their inheritance was within the inheritance of the children of Judah. So they didn't have their own set apart type of thing. They were given into the midst of Judah, just like what Israel had said that he would divide them into Jacob and scatter them into Israel. So both Simeon and Levi, this happened to them. So, verse number 8, Judah. Now, we are going to take some time into Judah because Judah's also is an important part in the future, just like the rest of them. Judah, verse 8, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thy enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down and he crushed as a lion, and as an old man who shall rouse him up. The scepter should not depart from Judah. Now a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come, or Shiloh for some, and to him shall the gathering of the people be, binding his fowl unto the vine, and his ass coat into the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, his clothes in the blood of grapes, and his eyes should be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. The scepter should not depart from Judah, nor lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come, Shiloh for some, and to him shall the gathering of the people be. Binding his vow into the vine, his ass coat into the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes, and his eyes should be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. I know you wonder, why did I read that twice? I read it twice because that's important. That is a prophecy about our Messiah, about our Messiah. And many people can't find the Messiah. They have a hard time finding the Messiah in the scriptures. And I know it can be difficult, especially studying the Torah. Judah is another child from Leah. Judah gets a portion of a firstborn birthright. He gets to be the ruler, the kings of kings. The Messiah is the ruler that comes from Judah's bloodline. This is why in First Chronicles chapter 5, verse 2, for Judah prevailed above his brethren, and of him came the chief ruler. That's the part of the birthright that Joseph received. And see, this is why this birthright blessing that Israel does is different, because he gives Ephraim, Manasseh's sonship, bring them up, and they be fruitful and multiply. But we have Judah being the ruler, which usually the firstborn blessing is the ruler in multiplication and all, in the land. But we find it divided. So Joseph, again, his two sons get that multiplication of the people, just multiplying and being fruitful. And then we have Judah becomes the ruler. Now, I saw the beginning of Judah becoming a ruler back starting in Genesis chapter 43 and 9. So this is when Israel, the father, told the sons to go back to Egypt to get some more grain, and he wanted them to go without Benjamin, but Judah said he's not going without Benjamin. Matter of fact, this is what he actually made himself personally responsible for bringing Benjamin back. Just let him come with us because we can't go back there without him. So 43:9, he says, I will guarantee his safety. You may hold me personally responsible. If I do not bring him back, set him before you. Then may I bear the guilt before you all my life. So he most definitely was willing to take the responsibility of Benjamin if you let him come with us, because we can't go back there without him. So that's the beginning that I noticed that he started to come up into this rulership, this responsibility of the family and things like that. Now, the second time that I witnessed seeing some demonstration of Judah in his leadership, when he offered himself to be a servant to ensure his brothers return in Canaan to Israel. So this is the point where he did not know who Joseph was, but he was willing to serve as a servant as long as Joseph, the governor of Egypt, will allow Benjamin to go back and his brothers. You find this in Genesis chapter 44, verse 33. Now, please let your servant stay here as my Lord's slave in the place of the boy, which is meaning Benjamin, and let him return with his brothers. Now, that's twice. Now, the third time I'm start recognizing that even Israel start recognizing who Judah is. This time, this Israel sent Judah ahead to Egypt before the rest of them sent Judah ahead to obtain all the information for Goshen. You find this in Genesis 46 and 28. Now, Jacob has sent Israel, has sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen when Israel family arrived in the land of Goshen. So he most definitely have already began setting the foundation of leadership without anyone recognizing that it is already happening before them. This is why we do need to take our time in the scriptures. Now, Genesis 49, verse 13, Zebulun and Issachar and Dan is what we're going to go into. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be a haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. Issachar is as strong as couching down between two burdens, and he saw the rest was good, and land that was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. Dan should judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan should be a serpent by the way, and an adder in the path that biteth the horse heel, so that his rider shall fall backward. Now, he is now talking about three of the sons. Now, there has been a little switch in the birth order. So you remember when Joseph has set the table in his home according to the birthright. See, if we read in Genesis chapter 49, this is the order of the birthright. But however, Issachar and Zebulun switched around. So it should be Issachar and Zebulun. Now, this is kind of difficult to understand when he is referring to Zebulun to me. Now, if you know the answer and you understand it better than I am, please lead the way and let me know. But I did not find the haven of ships type of prophecy for Zebulun because I looked at the map, and I'm going to show you the map that I have. I'm going to take the sheet down. So I looked at the map. So at the very top, you should see Zebulun. Now, I do see the Sea of Galilee, but that is next to Naphtali's inheritance. And then I see the Mediterranean Sea, which is Asher, um, a, allotted land. So I did not see Zebulun um, by the waters, but most definitely, I'm pretty sure they also was a part of trade. Now, this is probably where we will read more as we get into the prophet's book with the Zidon with the trade. So just we're gonna have to just figure this out on our journey if we can. We know in part if we don't, and if someone else can enlighten me, I'm okay with that. Now, um, Issachar and Zebulun doesn't have. It's not much in the scriptures about their greatness or anything like that, like you will find in other tribes. They all had some great people that come from them. Now, Issachar had a judge in the book of Judges named Tula, the son of Pul, who judged Israel for about 23 years. Now, when it comes to Issachar, I have found in Issachar, his tribe, in First Chronicles chapter 12, that he was a part of the warriors that David had called up on, which is fascinating. If you go to First Chronicles chapter 12, he lists all the names of the different tribes and their warriors, but guess what? I did not find in that list? The Reubenites. None of them was in that list. So I just find that very fascinating. Now, Zebulun did have one judge themselves in the book of Judges, and that was Elon, and he judged for about 10 years. So again, Issachar also was, when you read about in First Chronicles in 12:32, they had wisdom, so they understood the times. So it's just fascinating as you continue to learn about the different tribes. Now, Dan. We actually um, did a study of the tribe of Dan and go all the way back to Judges chapter 18. I believe that was early part of October. So Dan is known for the judges. Well, at least one famous judge, and that is Samson. Samson judged Israel for about 20 years. And Dan's also the Pacific tribe that developed their own priesthood in the land of Dan. It was a Levite, but it wasn't from the bloodline of Aaron, which is where the priesthood comes from. Instead, this Levite, his name was Jonathan, and he came from, he's actually Moses' grandson. And from Moses' grandson, Jonathan, from his bloodline is where Dan developed their own priesthood. And they had their own house of pagans. I mean, they had their own thing going on. And another thing that I find fascinating about the tribe of Dan, if you go into the book of Revelations, chapter 7, verse 5 through 8, you have the list of tribes. But Dan is missing. You have Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. But you're missing Dan and Ephraim from that list. Now, this is during the time of the tribulation. But if you go to Ezekiel chapter 48, you will have the tribes listed. Now, Ezekiel 48, if you don't know, is about the time of the millennium. This is when the Messiah is here on earth and he's ruling. So you will find all the list of tribes there, even the Levite priesthood going on. So this is why we have to do the whole word of truth together. So this tribe of Dan there's no explanation why they're not in the Revelation. And I know some commentaries would say because they went into paganism. But they're not the only tribe that went into paganism. Actually, many of the tribes um, mixed in, and many of the tribes did what was right in their own eyes. That's what we learned all through the book of Judges and continue to learn about. So it's not only the tribe of Dan that went their own way. So that's why I'm like, I don't think that's the answer. And we may not have the answer why he's not there, but we only know things in part. Verse number 49 now. Verse number 18 is where we're going to end at. And it's a very powerful verse. So we learned about who Judah is and that bloodline. But in the midst of Israel letting his sons know about their descendants and where their future is going, headed towards, he says this: I have waited for thou salvation, O Yehovah. So in the midst of this direction, he burst this out, speaking about waiting for Jehovah's salvation. So I looked up salvation, and I'm pretty sure that you guys heard me say this before. If you look up salvation in Strong's, it's H3444. It is Yeshua. There's nothing else I can say about that. This is so amazing to me that Israel in this time says that he's been waiting for Yeshua. Now, again, if you look that up in Strong's, it means help, deliverance, help, save, saving, welfare, salvation. So Israel is waiting on Yeshua. How did he hear about the coming of Yeshua? If we believe that Yeshua is only for the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, how did Israel hear about Yeshua and waiting on him? Well, Yeshua himself in the book of John said that Abraham saw his day and he was glad. John 8, chapter 8, verse 56, it says, your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and he was glad. The Bible also tells you that Abraham taught his sons the law, all 8 of his sons, because this is the reason why Yehovah chose him. Genesis 18 and 19, for I've chosen him so that he will command his children in his household after him to keep the way of Yehovah by doing what is right and just in order that Yehovah may bring up on Abraham what he has promised. In other words, Abraham passed this information on to his children. He passed it to Isaac. Isaac passed it on to his children. So Jacob, now Israel had the information. And now Israel is passing on to his sons. Yeshua has been there from the beginning. Salvation has been there from the beginning. And Abraham, Isaac, and Israel is able to testify about this. This is not only for the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, it is for today. I hope that you have learned something today. I had to narrow it down because, like I said, we can go weeks learning about all the different tribes throughout the Bible. But we're just going to try to minimize it as much as possible, and eventually we go into a more deeper study. I'm pretty sure we will. So don't forget before you leave out of here to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up and like it and share this with your friends and your family. As always, man does not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yehovah. Have a blessed rest of the week, and I most definitely will look forward to joining you live on Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. as we continue through the book of Judges. May Yehovah bless you. Thank you.